Hello everyone and welcome to Galactic Grooves, episode number 3. My name is Chip Boaz and I'm a jazz bassist who is also a lifelong Star Wars fan. You'll usually find me here playing lots of music, but this is the time when I talk Star Wars because every day can't be all about that bass. So I'm going to dig into everything happening in Star Wars right now. While you're here, if you get a chance to check out my music, that would be amazing. But right now, it's time for the galaxy far, far away. So are you ready to get your groove on? This was a big week in Star Wars because we saw the 3-episode premiere of Andor, and I want to talk all about that, but I want to start with the important stuff. That's right, the music of Andor. You might have guessed that that's really important to me, but hey, Star Wars would not be complete without music. It's always been such a big part of the experience that whenever some new Star Wars comes out, I am always really curious about that music and how it's going to play into the story. They have a wonderful composer for Andor. Nicholas Britell is a really accomplished composer. He's done a lot of film and television soundtracks, and he brings a really unique voice to the Star Wars universe. Now, you've got to think about that, right? That can't be an easy thing to do, because I would assume that when you are hired to write music for Star Wars, it's like you have John Williams standing over your shoulder, right? I mean, Nicholas Britell is a awesome composer, and he's done a lot. I don't think he's intimidated by the experience at all, but how do you not think about that, right? I mean, John Williams wrote themes that just became part of social consciousness. That is massive. That is big. That is important work that lives with us. And it is intimately connected to Star Wars. So I wonder if you're Nicholas Britell or any composer that is writing for a newer Star Wars project, how do you frame that in your head, right? Are you thinking, well, I'm going to try to write something that sounds like John Williams because that's what Star Wars is? Or are you thinking, I'm going to write something that has nothing to do with John Williams because we're going to stand apart and be something totally unique and new? Or do you play it safe and sit somewhere in the middle? Yeah, I'm going to pull in a little bit of that John Williams thing here and there, but I'm going to do my own thing, and it's going to be a little combo. Wow, it has got to be a tough spot. The thing that really comes to me is I really wonder how much Disney and Lucasfilm influences all of those decisions that go into writing music for Star Wars. Because we've heard rumors that there's a little bit of micromanagement when it comes to Star Wars projects from the upper-ups at Lucasfilm. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's been said enough time to where I start to believe that no one is leaving Nicholas Britell completely alone and just saying, yeah, whatever, just write some music. We'll just see what happens. I just don't think that's the way a project like this goes, right? I'm sure Disney and Lucasfilm are being very specific with the music and the type of music that they want for Andor. Now, I'm going to read a couple quotes. There was a great interview with Nicholas Britell in Variety where he talked about that a little bit. He said, "So there's been a lot of conversation, but actually a lot of freedom too for me to explore things. Everyone's on the same page about having a specific set of soundscape textures, sound worlds for this. Orchestra features heavily in it. There's a wide range of sounds, and I've created a lot of new sounds." Now, that really makes sense. It's got to be so fascinating to write music for Star Wars, right? Because there are like sounds that are associated with worlds. There are themes that are associated with characters, planets. The whole orchestral thing. That's a big part of Star Wars, right? When you hear a synthesizer and a drum kit and a groove, that doesn't sound like Star Wars. I mean, it sounds like something cool, but not necessarily what we think of when we think of Star Wars. So thinking of orchestra performance playing a big part of that, that's really interesting. And as we're listening to the music for Andor, we are hearing that orchestra blended with more modern sounds. So it's really, really interesting. And, he's saying that there's freedom. And I don't think you hire someone like Nicholas Britell and tell him exactly what to do. He's too high profile a composer like that. He could get other work. He could definitely walk away from the project if he's not given any freedom. So I like that. He also talked a little bit about the process. So I'm just going to read another quote here. "The scope of the series is massive. Every episode has new demands, new music, and new ideas. It's important that as the story evolves, the music should evolve too. We've been working nonstop for months, actually years at this point. And Britell said that they have been working on the music for Andor since 2020. It's 2022 now. That is a couple of years. That is a big musical, artistic, and professional commitment that he has put into this. And, as he says that, it's really something to think about, right? Andor, the first season alone, is 12 episodes. Each episode looks to be like it's going to be anywhere between 40 minutes and an hour long. That demands a lot of music, and that is a massive story to tell. When you're telling close to 12 hours of story, it's going to be quite a journey. It's going to evolve. That means the music, as Britell says, is going to evolve and is going to be kind of all-encompassing of so many different things. So it's really exciting to think of once Andor is complete, we're going to have this massive volume of music from Nicholas Britell that is really connected with this part of the Star Wars universe. I am really, really looking forward to that. He's also done something new and interesting with Andor in that every episode is going to have its own theme. Now, there is a main Andor theme that carries through the greater scope of the show, but each opening sequence is going to be a variation on that theme. So we have this whole kind of theme and variations idea happening, which is really beautiful. It's a really unique thing that we haven't seen in Star Wars yet, but it makes sense with a show like Andor, which is a little more nuanced, which is a little more complex. There's a lot to it. So I like this, and I like what we're getting. Now, the first 3 themes from the opening sequences have been released on streaming services to listen to. They dropped on the same day as Andor, and it is just that. It is beautifully done theme and variations. It's really interesting to listen to. I actually listened to those 3 themes before I watched Andor, and you just kind of hear an unfolding through the music. I'm really, really excited about this. I'm going to be honest, I would really prefer that we got the full soundtrack from all 3 of those episodes on September 21st. I mean, you know, in the first season of The Mandalorian, every week Disney would release the soundtrack for that episode. And it was a really cool thing to follow along and hear all that music. It was a really interesting thing to hear the show, right? The music from the show, that story all together, right? When we listen to the music from A New Hope, we have the whole soundtrack. It's the whole storyline right there. I liked that in The Mandalorian. As we got, I could be wrong on this, but I want to say we got to the Book of Boba Fett, they started holding off and releasing soundtracks every few episodes or so, which is great. Hey, I'll take the music. I love the music, but I really liked that episode by episode thing. I wish they were doing that with Andor. I would love to hear each one of these broken up a little bit, but I can't wait to hear the full soundtracks because the music from the show was beautiful, and I can't wait to hear the full thing. So I guess that we'll wait and see. Right? All right, but now it's time to talk about Andor, the show, what we saw in those 3 episodes. And I'm going to fill some of that in with my opinions on the whole thing. But I want to warn you first, we are going to be throwing out serious spoilers. I'm recording this on September 23rd. The show came out on September 21st. It is possible if you have not seen the first 3 episodes of Andor, I may spoil it for you. I don't want to do that. So here I go. I'm going to cue that spoiler music now. It's a spoiler groove, so you can move, so you don't get no spoilers. It's a spoiler groove, so you can move, so I don't ruin Star Wars. It's a spoiler groove, so you can move, so you don't get no spoilers. It's a spoiler groove, so you can move, so I don't ruin Star Wars. Alright, you have been warned. We're walking into spoiler territory now for Andor, Rogue One, and just about everything else Star Wars. So let's get into it. I really like the fact that we got the first 3 episodes of Andor as a chunk. It was like a mini movie. I really have to say, you know, I watched the 3 episodes individually. I didn't watch them all back to back. I watched the first episode on the 21st, and I watched the next one in the morning on the 22nd, the last one at night. And so I didn't see it at first, but after watching all 3, it really was like this little kind of complete story right there that really needed to be told together. So I'm really glad that Disney made that choice to drop those first 3 episodes together. And I have to say, it got me really invested in the story. I mean, hey, it's Star Wars. I would be watching it one way or the other, right? There's no doubt there. But I'm hooked. This is a deep story with incredible acting, great direction in the whole thing. So I was really glad to see those 3 episodes. And I have to admit, the story was slightly different than I expected, which was a pleasant surprise right there. In summary, what we saw is we saw a lot of Cassian Andor. It is 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, and he is living on a planet called Ferrix. Now, it flashes back and forth between Cassian Andor as a child and then the current Andor 5 years before the Battle of Yavin. As we see Cassian Andor as a child, he's living on his home planet of Kenari. He's there. He looks to be like kind of middle school age-ish. He's got his sister Carrie with him. His parents are gone, so he's kind of this fatherly figure to his sister, and he lives in a group of similar people. And they all observe a ship fall from the sky and crash land. Now, their leader puts together a troop of older Kenarians to go investigate. Casa, as Andor is called on his home planet, really wants to go. They kind of go, no, you're a kid. But he ends up going with them, and they go to investigate. The leader goes out and kind of checks in with some people who look to be dead that have fallen out of this spaceship, which is just in ruins now. But they weren't. And one of them ends up killing her. The Kenarians attack, and there's this whole scene, and they take her away, but Casa stays behind, and he's very angry. He's very, all pumped up about this. So he's gonna go in and do something about it. So he sneaks into the ship and starts looking around. It's obvious that he's never seen technology like this before. His planet and his life looks like there's not a lot of spaceships and droids and the whole thing. Very kind of primitive in a way. And so he walks onto the ship. He looks around. It looks like most of the people are dead. He looks on a piece of technology and sees his reflection for the first time, which is kind of interesting to watch this young man kind of looking at himself and seeing what his face is like, and then actually getting really angry and starts smashing stuff. And he's just tearing apart this ship. And then Marva, who is an older lady, and her partner come in. They're trying to steal stuff from the ship, and they find Casa wrecking stuff. And right as they find him, they find out that Republic troopers are coming in, and they got to get out of there before somebody discovers that they were stealing things. And in this rush to escape, Marva tranks Casa, takes him with her in the idea that if they left him there, he would be at the mercy of the Republic soldiers and he wouldn't last long. And so she takes him with her on her ship and flies away into a new life where he becomes Cassian Andor. Now, this happens in little chunks over the 3 episodes and is interwoven with his story as an adult, where he's kind of sneaking around Ferrix looking for his sister, who he believes is there, and at the same time looking for a little cash. So he starts out wandering through this seedy kind of underworld of Ferrix and ends up at a brothel, which was very on Star Wars, but it was a very distinct statement right away that this is a more adult show. This is a show that maybe is not a kids show, which was in a way really kind of refreshing to see Star Wars. You know, those of us like me who saw A New Hope in the theaters in 1977, we're a little older now. We are adults. So it was kind of nice to see that aimed at us. And he's there. He's looking for his sister, and he's informed that his sister possibly was there but left. While he's finding this out, he kind of gets in an argument with some Imperial officers. Now, they're not Imperial officers, though. They're Pre-More Authority officers, which I guess is a combination of like some private security agency that's affiliated and works with the Empire in one way or another. That wasn't super clear to me, but they've got Imperial vibes for sure. They didn't like Andor, so they kind of follow him out of the brothel and hassle him a little bit, shake him down. But he's tough, right? He's like a super spy. So he ends up tricking them and kind of turning the tables on him. And he ends up killing the two of them and then running away. And you see this right from the start. The idea of kind of Andor not being afraid to take the less moral route right there. So it's a really interesting point of view on the whole thing. So he does that, and by doing that, he gets the attention of the Pre-More Authority uppers, in particular Deputy Inspector Cyril Karn, who's this pretty intense dude who really wants to see Andor get caught, and he gets all kind of hot and bothered about the whole thing. So he's on the hunt for Andor. Meanwhile, Andor has stolen a piece of very valuable Imperial tech, and he is looking to sell it. So he goes to his friend Bix Kayleen, who kind of has some different connections in the world, asks her to kind of connect him with a buyer. She seems to know someone. So she contacts this buyer. She has to get kind of coerced a little bit by Andor, but she eventually does it, which kind of gets under the collar of her boyfriend, who she works with. He gets kind of bothered by the whole thing. She doesn't kind of see all that, but she keeps going and contacts this person. And as there is a kind of warrant out for somebody who's kind of like Andor, he calls the Pre-More Authority and says, "Hey, I know your guy. I'm going to turn him in." And he tells them about Andor and how to find him and the whole thing. So Andor just wants to sell this bit of Imperial tech, have enough money to escape from Ferrix and move on to the next part of his life. So he meets with Bix's buyer, who happens to be Luthen Rael, who is we don't know at the time, but it looks like he's a rebel agent. So he goes to meet Andor in this big kind of warehouse type thing. And at the same time, the Pre-More Authority knows that they're going to be meeting there, so they surround the thing. Inside there, Andor and Luthen Rael are having this discussion, this real heated discussion, and Luthen Rael wants the tech, but he also wants to recruit Andor for what looks to be possibly the early stages of the Resistance. So there's this kind of connection right away to the Resistance, to Star Wars, to the whole thing, which is super cool. Now, the Pre-More Authority tries to attack, but hey, it's almost like they're stormtroopers and they're not that smart or something like that. So Andor and Rael really outsmart them. But a really cool thing happens is that everyone around them, we've kind of met these people that live around Andor, they all take part and they do their part to make sure the Pre-More Authority does not get Andor and Rael. And you start to see a little bit of discontent. You start to see a little bit of why the universe rebelled at that point. It's a really intense action scene. Andor and Rael escape and fly off to the next chapter, and it's such an exciting culmination. these 3 episodes together were really, really great. I mean, my summary doesn't quite do them justice. If you haven't watched it, well, sorry for the spoilers, but watch it because it is so, so good. Now, there's been a lot of talk about how different this show is from earlier Star Wars, and I really have to agree. I mentioned the kind of adult slant on the show, and it's darker, it's grittier, it's more real life. It's just kind of not as shiny as Star Wars. You know, it's really about working class people. It's got a lot of people down on their luck. It's more of a reflection of adult life in there. And there's also a lot more human elements to the show. You know, there's relationships, there's family, there is, you know, and a really implied sex scene. It is really not the Star Wars that we've seen in the past. And I think that is a great thing. It's an evolution. It's something a little different, a branch of the galaxy far, far away that we all knew was there, but has just never been shown to us. So it's really, really cool that we're seeing this. And boy, you know, I would say this show is darker and dingier than Rogue One, even, you know, which was where it's come from. It really stands out in the whole kind of Star Wars universe canon. The filming on it is really brilliant too. There's a lot of use of practical effects. There's these great kind of wide shots. The CGI is very tasteful in the way that is employed in the show. Brilliantly done. The color scheme, it's all just so good. And kind of a new angle on Star Wars in the modern era, which I thought was really cool. Hey, and of course, Andor has a droid, which is probably the most Star Wars thing on the show, right? We can't have a new Star Wars show without a cool droid to get us going. He's a red salvage droid. His name is his name is B2EMO. He looks a little bit like a red garbage can with a big bright eye in the middle of his head. He kind of shifts up and down. His personality reminds me a little bit of D.O. from Rise of Skywalker. I'm going to be honest, D.O. wasn't my favorite droid that Star Wars has ever introduced. But you know what? I actually really came to like D.O. Through kind of the extended part of the story by reading the book Shadow of the Sith, in which D.O. plays a part of. So, you know, over these 12 episodes, I am sure that I am going to grow to love B2. He talks. He's a little bit of an older droid. It seems like he's kind of like a pet to Andor. It's almost like his dog. In a way. Andor's a little bit of a jerk to him, though, I do have to say. I mean, I don't treat Lola and Pickles like that. I wish he would treat B2 a little better. But, you know, we'll see. Because I assume even though at the end of the episode, Andor left that planet and left B2 behind, I think we're going to see more of B2. I did notice that B2 is now in the introductory Star Wars thing where they show all the different droids before the show starts right there. So, you know, I assume he's going to make another appearance. Now, one thing I was surprised about, we haven't seen Mon Mothma yet. That's not necessarily a bad thing. There's 9 episodes left. From the look of the trailer, it seemed like Genevieve O'Reilly's Mon Mothma was going to be an equally major player in the show. So I kind of thought her story would intertwine with Andor's a little earlier, would kind of be a reflection against the kind of rough life that he's living. I don't know. Maybe that was me just reading things into the trailer. That's very possible. But I'm really excited to see her character play a part in this. We've got 9 episodes left. I've been hearing that we're going to see her next week in episode 4. So I really look forward to seeing how that plays out. So final thoughts on that though. I really like Andor. Like I was saying, these 3 episodes, I was really drawn into them. And one of the things I like about it is it's a really, really slow burn. These 3 episodes, you really had to watch all 3 to get it. Like I said, I watched them separately, and I watched the first episode, and I was a little bit like, okay, where is this going? And then I saw the second episode, and I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of making sense. This is going somewhere. And then I watched the third episode, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. It's a real slow burn. It's a real evolving story. Now, this is great, because when I heard that Andor was going to be 12 episodes, I have to admit, I was a little leery. One of the things I've really loved about the Disney Plus shows is that they are longer than a movie, so you have time to go more in depth. You have time to have some character development. You have time to tell a longer, more complicated story. I like that. But even though they've been longer than movies, they've been confined to 6 to 8 episodes, which has still allowed them to tell a tight storyline. 12 episodes, I start to wonder if, are we going to get some filler episodes? Are we going to kind of wander in and out of the story? I don't feel like that. After seeing the slow burn of these 3 episodes, I believe and I trust that we're going to need 12 episodes to get through this story. Really powerful stuff, and I got to tell you, the next 9 weeks are going to be great. I am so excited to see the rest of this story. It's going to be so good. To wrap up with the question of the week, because I got to throw out a fun Star Wars musical question this week on all the socials and get some response from people watching the show, and I wanted to share some of that. So the question that I threw out this week is, which Star Wars character would make the best bass player, right? Isn't that the question on everyone's mind? I mean, I know it's a question I have been asking, but I wanted to hear the word on the street. For our listeners on Galactic Grooves, who do you think would make the best bass player in the Star Wars universe? Well, I got some fun responses. My friend Michael Zinchus on Twitter said Chewbacca, Chewie, would be the best bass player. It was a fun little thread of tweets where he said, I thought Chewbacca was actually playing bass in the movie. Can you imagine that? My response was, well, it must have been a deleted scene, right? Because who knows? Maybe. Can you picture Peter Mayhew in the original Star Wars rocking out on some bass in the Chewie costume? Oh, it'll be good. And he finished up with some big bass player vibes from Chewie. I'm right there. I think Chewie would make a great bass player. Chewie's one of my favorite Star Wars characters, so of course he's a bass player. My friend Callan O'Brien on Instagram let me know that he thought the modifier from the 4th episode of the Book of Boba Fett would be a great choice. And I know where you're coming from, Callan, because he's right. Because the modifier, hey, maybe that Star Wars character would be a great bass player, but the actor that played the modifier is Steven Bruner, Thundercat, who's a beast of a bass player and would have the chops to bring that out in the mod shop, right? Can you picture that modifier rocking out on a 6-string bass during the Book of Boba Fett? I would pay extra for my Disney Plus subscription to see that. Give it to me, Disney Plus. I can't wait. Now, personally, some thoughts I had as I was thinking about this. I thought, I think Ahsoka Tano would be a beast of a bass player. I think she would lay down a fat groove and would be more than willing to bust out a killer bass solo. I could see that happening. I picture Wedge Antilles as one of those kind of back of the stage bass players holding down the groove while the band rocks out. I could see it. Wedge is a team player. That would happen. And then, of course, I was thinking, hey, Kit Fisto. Of course. Why not? Why not? Because that would be awesome. Wouldn't we all like to see Kit Fisto playing bass? Let's make it happen, Lucasfilm. We all need it. Fun stuff. I love talking Star Wars. I love talking music. So we're going to do this every week. Hey, connect with me on the socials. You can find me on Facebook at Chip Boaz Music. You can find me on Instagram at Chip Boaz. You can find me on Twitter at Chip Boaz. You can find me on TikTok as Chip Boaz. Any of these places, connect with me and answer this question. All right, this week we're going to have a battle of the bands. In a Star Wars battle of the bands, who would win? The Max Rebo Band or the Modal Nodes? It's on. It's on. That's right. Battle of the Band. Max Rebo Band versus the Modal Nodes. You tell me who is going to win. You can reach out to me on any of those socials. You can send me an email, chip@chipboazmusic.com. Let's talk Star Wars. Let's talk music. And let's talk Battle of the Bands. Oh, yeah. Thank you for hanging out with me this week and talking Star Wars. I had a lot of fun. I would love it if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can hear every week all the Galactic Grooves. You could also check out my music here on the channel. If you want to go a step further, there's a link below to sign up for the Boaz Brigade, where I'll be keeping in touch with you on a weekly basis and letting you know everything that is happening. I'm so excited, folks. I can't wait for episode 4 of Andor. Let me know your thoughts. Send me a message, chip@chipboazmusic.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and may the Force be with you.